don't always show up to vote. And that's not going to happen. They're not going to get to the polls unless we're out there working to try to get them to the polls. That is what you all can do. You can be force multipliers for the Trump campaign. The Trump campaign is not just me going around and giving speeches and talking to reporters, and it's not the president going and doing these rallies. It's all of us together fighting to save the country, and what we need from you is to get your friends and family to the polls. On that topic, the second thing I'm going to ask you to do, whether now when I'm taking questions from reporters, afterwards take a selfie, take a photo of me up here, just get out there and post, whether it's on social media, text message, email, use whatever method of communication you use, and talk to people about why you're voting for Donald Trump. It's very simple. If we get out there and we talk about why we're voting for Donald Trump, and 100 of our friends see it, or 1,000 of our friends see it, that's the way that we become a force multiplier and win this campaign in Nevada and everywhere else. So number 2, talk about why you're voting for Donald Trump. That's the second request. And here's the third request. There's a website that we've built that helps you check your registration. It helps you check where your polling location is. You can make sure your registration is up to date. You can also find information about how to get involved in our voter turnout efforts. And I'm going to repeat it, but it's swampthevoteusa.com. Okay? Swampthevoteusa.com, because as President Trump says, the only way we're going to win is to swamp that vote. Get out there, make your voice heard, make your friends and neighbors' voices heard, and we're going to take this country back, my friends. We got 13 days to do it. God bless you all. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for having me. I love this city and I love this state. God bless you. All righty. We're not done quite yet here. Let's just take a few questions from reporters before we have to hit the road.
Hello, good afternoon,
right.
Senator. My name is Leslie. I'm a local reporter with Univision Nevada. My question to you is, how do you plan to balance loyalty to the presidential nominee's agenda with pursuing your own policy priorities or areas of expertise?
Sure. Well, first, somebody just shouted something out, and I'm not going to respond to every person who shouts something out, but I want to respond to this one because it's a good point. Title IX. We need to preserve the right of girls to compete against other girls and not biological men. And for so many folks out there, I mean, you look at the coalition that Donald Trump has assembled. We've got on the right people like Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. We've got, of course, the president and me, and then we've got people like Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard. And you ask, how do you get that coalition together under the same tent? And it's very simple. It's common sense. If you believe that children ought to be educated and not indoctrinated at schools, if you believe that we ought to have a closed southern border, if you believe that in sports boys should compete against boys and girls should compete against girls, that's common sense. And that's all we stand for. You don't have to agree with us on every issue, but let's cut out the craziness in our politics and get back to common sense. And that's Donald J. Trump's leadership. Now, you asked how to balance, obviously loyalty to the president, because he's going to be the president in just a few short months, president-elect in a couple weeks. How to balance that with my own agenda. Look, my own agenda is the agenda that's best for the American people, and that is Donald J. Trump's agenda, because he's going to fight for the American working people every single day. Now, of course, you're going to have disagreements from time to time. My job is to offer the president the wisest counsel that I can, to be honest with him about my opinion, but ultimately, the president of the United States is going to make decisions, and he's going to make very good decisions for the American people. That's why I'm thrilled to be here. That's why I'm thrilled to support him. One thing I say, you talk about loyalty to Donald Trump. Look, I love Donald Trump, and I am very loyal to Donald Trump. But I think I speak for President Trump. I speak for myself. Loyalty first to the American people. That's why I like Donald Trump, is because he's loyal to the American people. And it sounds so common sense and it sounds so obvious, but when you've got a vice president, Kamala Harris, who's opened the American southern border, who's given free health care benefits to illegal aliens, can we just get back to a president who cares about the citizens of his own country? That is the responsibility of an American leader, and that's why I'm supporting Donald Trump, because he actually cares about the people who built this country, and he's fighting for their future, not the future of people who don't belong in this country in the first place. Next question.
Senator Vance, thank you for taking questions, first of all. Actually,
you're welcome.
Taking questions. Back in May, Senate Democrats failed to carry forward the bipartisan security bill. You were among the senators who voted to filibuster it. Chuck Schumer said Donald Trump was trying to pressure Republicans to vote against it in order to campaign on border chaos. My question to you, sir, is what was actually in that security bill that you had policy disagreements with?
That's a good question, and actually, I mean, you guys have way better reporters here than most of the national media, because because the question wasn't just Kamala Harris propaganda. Look, the reason, first of all, the idea that Donald Trump killed that bill is totally false. I was in the negotiations. I was talking to my colleagues. The reason that bill was killed is because it was a disaster for border security. It was a bad bill. Here are three things that would have done. First of all, it would have given the ability to grant asylum without any hearing to the most liberal bureaucrats in the entire country. You want to have an open border, you give liberal bureaucrats the ability to wave a magic wand and give amnesty to millions upon millions of people. And not just that, but it would have been impossible for the president to change it. Because once that's written into law, you can never go back. It codified catch and release, in other words, and that is a disaster for the American people. Number two, that bill contemplated giving legal status to 2 million illegal aliens every single year. What kind of a border security bill gives legal status to 2 million people per year? That's a disgrace. That's not a border security bill. That's a Kamala Harris open borders bill, and I'm glad that we destroyed that bill because it was bad for the American people. And here's the final thing. That bill did nothing. The biggest scam in Kamala Harris's open border is what's called parole. And forgive me for getting in the weeds a little bit, but it's important to understand when somebody comes to this country, the president and the vice president have the ability to, on a case-by-case basis, waive our immigration laws, okay? It's supposed to be used sparingly. It's supposed to be used, again, on a one-by-one basis. Kamala Harris has granted parole to millions upon millions of people who have no right to be in the United States of America. Any border security bill that doesn't prevent that from happening is not a border security bill, and that's why that bill was a disaster for the people of Nevada and all across our country. Let's do a couple more questions.
Thank you for taking our questions, Senator Vance. I'm Ben Marjat with News 4 and Fox 11 here in Reno. If elected, what specifically would you do to prevent transgender women from playing in women's sports? Because in Nevada, the University of Reno's Reno's president, a Republican, we might add, says that it's against the Nevada Constitution to forfeit a game for reasons related to gender identity.
Well, so here's the problem here, is that you have to make clear that Title IX protects the interests of our young girls instead of facilitating the destruction of girls' sports. That's all you have to do. Title IX. Now, maybe we have to amend the law, or maybe it's just a matter of enforcement, but we've got to make clear that Title IX protects the rights of our young girls to compete against young girls. It's that simple. And this is, I mean, look, this is a public safety issue, especially with contact sports. I'm the father of a 2-year-old daughter. I don't want my little girl to grow up to compete in sports and then to get bludgeoned by a man. That's disgusting. It's disgraceful. It can't happen in the United States of America. I want her to build confidence. I want her to learn teamwork. I want to learn about the give and take of sports. That's why we think it's so important for our young girls to participate in sports. But in the name of a far left, lunatic, progressive idea, we are destroying girls' sports in this country. It's going to have ramifications far beyond just athletic competition. So I think that's the big thing is Title IX, and there are all of these weird and frankly sick little ways in which the Harris administration has put pressure on local school districts to comply with their interpretation of some of these approaches. For example, this hasn't gotten too much media coverage, but it is, I think, one of the worst scandals is early on in the Kamala Harris administration, they threatened to take free and reduced lunch money away from local school districts unless those local school districts allowed men to compete in girls' sports. Now, but just think about that. Think about that. We're going to take food away from the mouths of our poor children because a local school district wants to protect girls' sports. That is a disgusting thing to do to our people, and it's going to stop when Donald Trump is president. But it's so odd to me that the national media never asks Kamala Harris, do you agree with taking food from the mouths of poor children if they don't agree with your radical trans ideology?